Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Divine and this is your first time stopping here. You're welcome to Styles by Andre. So today's video I'll be showing us how to cut and sew this Bubu dress with a collar and a snatched waistline. So if this is something you're interested in, kindly watch this video to the end. So these are the fabrics I'll be using for today's tutorial. As you can see, our Bubu is a multicolored Bubu. So I'm going to be using 4 different colors of fabric. Then I'll be using the wine crepe for the collar. So the first thing I'm going to do is to open up my fabric and lay them out flat. So I have the 4 of them like so. Then I'm going to measure our gown full length. So from the top of my fabric, I'm going to measure 55 inches for my gown full length plus 2 inches for seam allowance, that's 57 inches. After marking it out, I'm going to cut it out. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to place the 2 back piece together. So I'm going to be using blue and purple for the back. Then from the center back, I'm going to sew with 1/2 inch. So that is going to be our center back. And the next thing we'll do is to join the pink and the green fabric together and sew the center front also with 1/2 inch. So I've done that here now and I've placed the back piece underneath the front piece. The next thing we'll do is to get our body measurement on this fabric. So I'm going to mark my apex first, that is my bust point first, of 10.5 inches. So because this is a Bubu, our bust point is 9.5 inches, so I made it 10 inches plus 1/2 inch sewing allowance at the top of our shoulder. So I'll be marking 10.5 inches for our bust point. Next is our half length, and our half length is 16.5 inches. Next, I'm going to mark my hip line, and I'll be coming down from my half length with 7.5 inches. I'll mark that out. Then I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2. Then from my shoulder tip, I'm going to measure how long I want my sleeve to be. So here now I marked 12 inches. I later reduce that in the video. I'll show us in the course of the video. Then from my sleeve, I'm going to come down with 1 inch to get our shoulder slope. Now for our neckline, I'm going to mark our basic neckline of 3 inches for the width, and the depth I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches for the back depth. So we're going to mark our back and front neckline on this pattern, but when cutting we are going to cut out the back alone. Then I'm going to be marking our front depth of 9 inches, which I'll be connecting back to the width of 3 inches, and this is what we are having. Then I'm going to draw out my shoulder slope starting from the neck width all the way to the sleeve. So our sleeve is starting from the shoulder tip all the way to where we want our sleeve to stop. Then from the sleeve hem, I'm going to come down with 9 inches. Then I'll measure what I have from my center front at the top all the way to my sleeve. I'll mark the same thing on my bust point. On the 9 inches I marked there, then I'll go in with 1 inch. I'll connect it like so. Next, I'm going to mark my bust measurement on my bust line. My bust measurement plus 4 inches for ease. I'll mark that out, then plus 1 inch for seam allowance. I'll mark that out. Now I'll measure all I have on this bust point and mark it all the way to the hem. Now if your hip is bigger, you can decide to use your hip measurement for this or put your actual hip measurement on your hip line. But the bust and the hip is almost the same, so I'm going to just use the same measurement. I'll connect the points together. Then on my armhole, I'm going to draw out a curve because our body is not sharp. So I'm going to blend it like so, using a curve to connect back to our body. So this is what we are having. Now I'm going to cut. And the first thing I'll be cutting is the neckline. I'm cutting only the back neckline first. Then I'll cut the shoulder. So we won't be cutting our front neckline first. We'll cut the only the back first, then we'll cut the bodies, and this is it. So after doing that, now I'm going to be sewing the shoulder of the front and the back. I'm going to open it up like so, making sure the right side of the front faces the right side of the back. I'll place it together, then sew using 1/2 inch. I'll sew the both shoulders using 1/2 inch. So I've done that now. This is what we are having. And then I'm going to open up my fabric like so, making sure the front is downwards and the back is upwards. Then I'm going to be marking 2 inches on my front pattern now. Starting from the center front, I'll go in with 2 inches. And this 2 inches is starting from the end of my neck depth. So this is where my 2 inches started from. Then I'll be connecting that 2 inches there now to touch my neck width using a straight ruler. So this is what we are having. If there's any sharp point here, you can blend it out. Then I'm going to be cutting. So this is my center front. I went in with 2 inches from the center front. Then I'm going to cut it out. And this is how our front bodice is. Now I'll measure all I have from the back neck all the way to the front hem. And I have about 60 inches here. So I'm going to be cutting my crepe fabric now, which I'll be using for our collar. And I cut out 2 inches from my center front. So when I'm cutting, I'm going to be cutting 2.5 on fold. So 2.5 on fold is 5 inches. So I'm going to mark 5 inches on this crepe here. And I'll cut as many as till I'm getting a length of 60 in 2 places. That's 120. So this is what I have. I've also ironed my paper stay on this fabric here, and I have 60 inches on fold. That's 120 in total. So I'm going to measure my back neckline first. You can see how I'm measuring it, and I have 3.5 inches. So to get our collar, I'm first going to be measuring from the top of my fabric here to 3.5 inches for the back neckline. So to get the collar for the back, I'm going to measure the back on the dress, then mark it out on this collar before I mark our front depth of 9 inches. So after that 3.5, I'll come down with 9 inches to mark our front depth. Then I'm going to get the midpoint. I'm going to get the midpoint of this fabric here, which will be 2.5. I'll get the midpoint all the way. Then next, I'm going to determine the length of my slit, where I want my slit to start. So starting from the front neck, I'm going to mark how long I want my slit to be. So I want my slit to start here. So I'm going to sew using normal stitches from here all the way to this point. And I've done that here. So I'll pick up the first 2 pieces like so and turn it over this way. I'll do that again. I'll pick the first 2, the left and the right side. I'll pick it up, then turn it this way and fold our neckline this way. So this is it. This is what we are having, and this is our slits. So you can make your slits you can make it anyhow you want it to be. Then I'm going to be sewing the sides closed so that it doesn't move, then trim out any excess I'm having. And this is it, guys. This is what we are having after sewing it down. So now I'm going to be fixing this to my dress. I'm going to notch the center back of my dress, of the neck of my dress. I'll notch it because the center back of this collar needs to align on the center back of this bubu. If not, our dress will be tilting in a way. So I'm going to also get the midpoint of our collar. I will notch it. Then I'm going to be placing this midpoint to midpoint, midpoint of the collar to the midpoint of the back neckline, and I'm placing the collar on the right side of the back of the fabric. So you can see I'm placing this on the right side of the fabric, not at the wrong side. So I'm going to pin it all the way to the end, after which I'm going to sew with 1/2 inch. Then I will do that for the other side. I'll pin it. We're pinning the collar to the right side, so by the time we are done sewing, it's inside. So this is what we are having after doing that. So this is it. So I'm going to be weaving the rough edges inside. So at this point now, I want to reduce my sleeve length. Figured it was too long, so I'm cutting about 1.5 inch away from this. Our dress here is going to be having a turn-up sleeve. So I'm going to open it up like so and measure what I'm having on my sleeve for the front and the back, and I'm having 18 inches. So now to cut up our turn-up sleeve, I want the turn-up sleeve to be 1.5 inch plus 1/2 inch for seam allowance, that's 2. So I'm going to be cutting 4 inches. 4 inches for our turn-up sleeve and a length of about 19 inches. So we don't cut it exactly 18 inches. We add to it maybe 19 or 19.5 inches. We'll cut it out. So I'll cut out 2 of these for the right and the left sleeve. So we're having 4 inches. When we fold it into 2, we are going to be having 2 inches. Then when we sew with 1/2 inch, we'll be left with 1.5 inch for our turn up. So I'll fold into 2 and just close the side using about 0.25 inches. And this is what I'm having after doing that. Now I'll bring up my dress now, and I'll be placing this strap underneath my dress. So the strap will be facing the wrong side of my fabric, like so. I'll be placing it underneath the wrong side of my fabric, then I'll sew with 1/2 inch. So don't place this on the right side, place this underneath on the wrong side. So you can see here that at the back we're not having any seam allowance showing, but at the front our seam allowance is showing. So by the time we fold our sleeve this way, you can see that now the sleeve allowance that was showing is covered. So that is it for our turn-up sleeve. But before I close the side, I want to insert the inner belt of this dress. So I'll arrange the dress like so, and from the shoulder I'm going to come down to mark our half length, 16.5 inches. So I'll mark that out, 16.5 inches. I'll mark that on the other side, 16.5 inches. Then I'm going to measure our waist measurement divided by 4, and from the center front I'm going to mark what I have, and I'm having 7.25. So I'll mark 7.25 from the center front, 7.25 from the center front to the other side. So our waist measurement divided by 4, which is 7.25. So from the center front, I'm marking 7.25 on both sides. Now for our strap, I'm having about 2.5 inches of fabric here, or 3 inches of fabric, sorry, and a length of about 36 inches, which is too long, but you can use that. So I'm going to sew the side close, then turn it out to the right side, and this is it. So I'm having about 1 inch of strap here. I'll open up my dress this way, separating the back from the front. Then I'm going to be attaching our belt to the front of this dress. I'll place it inward like this, then pin it on the mark we created on the half length, then sew with 1/2 inch. I'll place it this way also. I'll pin it, then sew with 1/2 inch, and this is what we'll be having. So to close up the side of our dress now, I'm going to be putting my turn up inside. So my turn up won't be facing outside, it will be facing inside, that is the right side of the fabric. I'll make sure I arrange it properly and push it in properly. Then I'm going to sew starting with 1/2 inch, then connect back to the 1 inch we added for our seam allowance. I'll sew it all the way to the end, and this is what we are having. So by the time we iron our turn up sleeve, the excess will stop coming out. So on the shoulder here, I'm going to be I'm going to be sewing a short line here so that the turn up stops moving. And before that, we can also decide to sew our hemming gum on this part here. So by the time we iron, everything stays in place. So the last thing I'll be doing here now is to hem the down of our dress. I'm going to hem the down, and this is the result we are having. So our dress came out so well, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in my next video. Bye for now.